There are a total of 245 cards in the Paldean Fates set list, not counting those promos that you can get from the 3-pack blister set, those tins, or of course that ETB. But there's only a select few cards that I'm personally going to be hunting for. Okay, so these first few cards on this list are fairly common and pretty easy pulls, but I'm personally excited to get them, either because I like the art style or they're my favorite Pokemon, so I'll just breeze through these real quick. So for your fairly standard common / uncommon cards, I'm looking at the Executor and that Haunter. I really like the art styles on both of these. Again, they are pretty common pulls. I am sure that I'm going to actually pull these when I open Paldean Fates, but I just have to say I like the art style on these cards. And moving on to the one and only kind of standard trainer card on this list, that's going to be the Rare Candy. And honestly, the Rare Candy is recycled art and just the card itself is recycled from previous sets. I am really excited for this card because of personally getting into the Pokemon TCG and actually playing it. This card is pretty awesome. And for myself, getting into the TCG, it's really helping me to appreciate the cards a lot more. And so the Rare Candy is a card that I'll be excited to pull and add to my own personal deck. Alright, but moving on to things that are a little bit more exciting, and that is going to be the Charizard EX and the Noivern EX. Now, this Charizard EX is pretty much the bare basic Charizard that you can get from this set, and so there's nothing really too special about this. Again, I will probably hopefully pull both of these cards when I rip into that ETB, but of course, I am really excited because Charizard is my guy. As you guys know, he is my favorite starter, and I absolutely love Charizard, and Noivern is just so sick in his own right, and so both of these cards I'm really excited about. Alright, but moving on to the biggest portion of this entire set list, they're going to be the baby shinies. So pretty much the shiny Pokemon that are in your standard Pokemon card format. They're not going to be the full art shinies or anything like that. They're basically going to look like your average Pokemon card where you see the Pokemon in the little box towards the top, and it's not taking over the whole card's art and the whole card's, size and everything like that. And so these are pretty much called baby shinies. Not that they're baby Pokemon, but they're just, shinies, but they're just not as big as full art cards. Now moving on to the first baby shiny on this list, and that is of course going to be Gloom. I really like the look of shiny Gloom, and I like the look of the yellow kind of tufts of hair / leaves that are kind of coming from the sprout on top of its head. And I just like how it looks on this card. It seems like it's kind of popping out with the colors, with the yellow against the silver background, and so it just looks honestly pretty cool. Next up is my boy Scyther. Scyther is one of those kind of underrated shinies where some people really love it and some people really dislike it. I'm one of the people that really like Scyther's shiny, and especially those little bits of pink that just pop in the different areas. I feel like those colors are really exaggerated and they really pop on this card, and so I'm really excited to hopefully find a baby shiny Scyther. Alright, moving on to a newer Pokemon, and that is going to be Toedscool. And Toedscool is such an interesting Pokemon, and the shiny is very cool and kind of underrated, a little bit, simple, and the colors are a bit more muted, but I really like Toedscool just as a Pokemon as a whole. He's just always walking, and I feel like he is constantly walking and constantly showing off that he can walk in this region because, of course, as you know, Tentacool in all of the other regions is just a very basic water Pokemon, and so there's nothing really special about him as far as being on the land, and so Toedscool is a really interesting take on a water Pokemon. Moving on to my boy Slowbro, and Slowbro is just always sitting, he's always chilling, he looks so comfortable, and he is just lost and confused, and his colors pop and all of that, but just Slowbro as a Pokemon as a whole is just, he's just confused, but he's chilling, he's happy. Alright, next up is Dondozo. Dondozo is a newer Pokemon. He is from the current Gen 9, and I really like Dondozo as a Pokemon as a whole, but his shiny is so interesting. The colors just completely contrast, and he is completely opposite of his normal basic look of the blue and the black and a little bit of the grays and the whites there. And so just seeing this Pokemon just be a completely contrasting color is really nice, and I really feel like the colors really pop on this card, especially with the silver background. It's funny seeing a white shiny Pokemon actually have the color seem like it's popping a lot more against a silver background, but it just really works in this case. Next up is Lucario, not only because he is an amazing Pokemon in his own right, but he also looks really cool in his shiny form. I really like how his colors look and how they mesh well together, and of course the angle of the art style here, he really looks like he's coming at you, and he is just fierce and ready to fight. There are a bunch of other really cool baby shiny Pokemon, but these are the ones that I'm personally interested in, either because I just don't like the look of the other baby shiny Pokemon, or the art style in their case just don't really look that good in my opinion. So in this particular case, the last one we're looking at today is King Gambit. King Gambit is one of my favorite Pokemon from Gen 9, and he just looks so serious, and he's just contemplating life. Every single time I see a card of King Gambit, every time I see him in the actual game when I'm using him, he is just so serious and just so strong and just intimidating. Just his whole presence is so overpowering, and so I really like King Gambit, and so getting a shiny King Gambit would be really, really awesome. Moving on to the only ultra shiny rare that is on this list that I'm personally interested in, and that is going to be the ultra shiny Esperatha, the Terra form, and I have no idea if I pronounced that correct. I always get it wrong every single time, but this card looks stunning. I mean, there is not much you can say. This is a really awesome card. Now, of all of the illustration rares, I mean, there are so many to choose from. There's literally only 3, but illustration rare Palafin is looking really awesome. For one, the art style of this card is just so dark and menacing, and he just really looks so kind of out of place against the dark and menacing backdrop around him, because to me he feels like a really bombastic and out there Pokemon. And so this card not only is contrasting in the sense of it being so dark and brooding against all these bright and colorful shiny Pokemon that are in this set list, but also just the Pokemon itself just feels like it's just out of place on the card. And so because of that, it feels so interesting, and I'm really excited to hopefully get an illustration rare Palafin. For full art trainers, we are looking at Clive. There are other full art trainers that are pretty awesome in their own right, but Clive is just the only one that's really sticking out to me. I mean, he has so much style. He is dripping with steez, and he's just looking so cool. And so getting a Clive would be pretty awesome. But here are some of the heavy hitters, and of course, I could not pick any special illustration rare that stood out more than the others, so I'm just gonna put all of them on the list. Now, of course, there's only 3 that are in this set list. We have the Mew, the Gardevoir, and the Charizard, and all 3 are just so incredible in very unique different ways. I mean, we have the Mew that just looks like a little baby floating off in the sky. The colors are so beautiful and bright and contrasting and colorful and playful, but then you move over to Gardevoir and everything feels so serene, and it's just, you know, in its natural habitat, and it's just chilling and just doing fairy things, psychic fairy things. But then you have Charizard, and like the card to me feels so hectic, and just the colors are just so in your face, and it's just a card that's like really busy but in a good way, and it just looks really dark and menacing with the darker colors of Charizard being a darker shiny. And so it's just, all 3 cards are just so interesting. I mean, I could go on forever about how the art styles of these cards are so different, but they're also unique and beautiful in their own way, and honestly I could not pick a particular favorite, so they're all on this list. Moving on to a big exception that I'm making, and that is putting all of the special illustration trainer cards on this list as well. I could not pick a particular favorite, and so I am really excited to hopefully pull that Clive, which is looking like it's like an Animal Crossing style of artwork. That's looking really cool. The Iono looks awesome. Iono is the one card that really sticks out to me because the colors really pop, and it really helps to illustrate what Iono is really like in real life. But of course, the Nemona and Penny are great too. Nemona is just so happy to be hopefully in a battle. She is battle crazy, and so I'm really hoping that this was just a snapshot of her getting prepared to get into a battle. And then Penny is just looking so just kind of alone, and she's just, you know, just chilling just by herself, and that's just how she likes to be. And of course, she has her Eevee backpack, and just her character as a whole is really interesting in the games. And so it really feels like each of these trainer cards are really doing justice in kind of capturing each person in their natural habitat and just in their personalities. Arven is the one card that, while I would be really excited to get, that's the one that if I had to pick one I'm not as excited about. It is going to be that Arven card, mainly because it just feels really busy, and it feels like the main focus of the card is the Pokeball that's kind of right there in the center, and so your eyes naturally fall towards that Pokeball, and then everything else as far as seeing Arven and seeing Mabostiff and seeing everything else going on the card just feels like your eyes fall naturally on the Pokeball, and then you have to train your eyes to look around the card. Maybe it's just me being absolutely crazy, but for me, this card feels a little bit too busy, but I still think it's really awesome, mainly because I feel like Arven is a really underrated character. I feel like not too many people really appreciate him in his story and just everything that he's going through in the game, and honestly, because of that, that is enough to kind of trump the artwork on the card itself. And of course, we are coming to the gold cards. The gold cards are not my favorite, mainly because of the blue-green harsh background and the contrasting between the gold borders. Again, that's something that some people are really gonna love and some people are really gonna hate. I am one of the people that really don't like it, and so really the only 3 cards that are on the gold tier set list of this particular whole Paldean Fates set list would be the Wo-Chien, the Miraidon, and the Koraidon. Miraidon and Koraidon are just honestly great legendary Pokemon, and they are fantastic box art legendaries, personally some of my favorite in the last several years, and so just getting any full art or just special artwork that can be done on a Miraidon or Koraidon card, sign me up for it. I don't care what it is, and even in these gold cases, I will just get over it. But Wo-Chien in particular is one that I'm really interested in, that I really want to get, because while I don't like the blue against the green backdrop and the, you know, the orange gold border, I do really like how it looks with the Wo-Chien card, mainly because it just feels really just natural. It feels like that is a card that was designed to look like that. All of the other cards on this list just look like they took regular artwork and slapped a blue filter on it and then wrapped it around in gold borders. And so it just feels kind of lazy in my opinion. Wo-Chien just kind of naturally looks like it fits in with the vibe of the color scheme of the card, and so that's honestly the main card that is in the gold set list that I'm personally interested in. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss my Paldean Fates ETB opening. If you want to see any of my other Pokemon content, definitely check out one of these videos. Again, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you in another video. Peace.